Hello and welcome to the Man Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Dennis, also co founder of Mentoring Men. And here we talk about men, women, families, occasionally even sex, masculinity, and life in general. I never talk about sex, do I, Matt?
I don't, I'm stunned to hear that
Yeah.
that you talk about sex.
Now, today's guest is Matt Hanser. He's one of the great men from the mentoring.men community. We have guys who don't talk about just sports and weather. And the reason Matt's here, like a number of men in the mentoring men community, he can cook, he enjoys cooking. My personal belief is if you're going to be a top tier man, you need to be able to cook. And it goes to the whole self reliance thing, And what I've learned, and maybe you can comment on this, is that when you can cook, it differentiates you from about 90% of the men in the dating pool.
So I'm dating a woman right now, and I was joking with her when I was making her dinner one night. I said, I'm sure you hate me cooking. She goes, "Oh, it's terrible. I can't stand sitting and watching you prep a meal. I'm having a glass of wine. It's terrible." Um, so yeah, it really is pretty awesome.
It's funny too because from a dating standpoint, I when I was single before, I used to do these 24-hour dates and I would pre-cook or pre-prep some food or go with simple things because again, having a woman sipping some wine, wearing your t-shirt is not a bad thing, is it?
Well, I haven't had her wear my t-shirt yet, but that's an idea. So I will.
Find a really soft long sleeve one. Trust me,
and
it goes over well.
don't cook without a shirt on. Cosmo
No,
Kramer taught us that in Seinfeld.
yes, and I've even started what's going to become a monthly series inside Mentoring Men where we're going to pick an item to cook and have the community cook it, take pictures, video, put it up there because there are many ways to cook different items. And I think too often people think cooking's difficult.
I,
And it can be on certain dishes or super fancy, but you know tell me if you would. First off, thanks for joining me. But tell me about what got you into cooking.
so I was raised in a household with four of us, plus mom and dad worked, and mom stayed at home and cooked, and not just cooked, raised kids. And I had a home cooked meal every single night. Didn't eat jarred pasta sauce. Family couldn't afford to go out to eat. If we did, it was a really special occasion. I also got to experience my grandmother cooking, Italian grandmother, and watching her cook was an adventure because you never knew what the sauce was going to taste like the next time you had it because she didn't know what was maybe in the house to use. So a roast on a Sunday night might be the meat that's in the sauce Wednesday. So that's what got me into it was watching my mother and my grandmother cook because my father can't cook. And I hope he sees this and he hears me say that. But that's what got me into it. And it's a creative outlet for me. It's actually an act of love.
It's the sixth love
So
language.
it is. And in all honesty, one of the challenges when I was married was that started to become a chore. And I lost, and we've talked about this before, Dennis. I lost my love of cooking. It is back with a vengeance.
Nice. Yeah. I didn't. So I one of my first businesses, I made pies
Hmm.
as a preteen or teen. Coconut custard, a few others. I used the supplies in the house, so I definitely had a great profit margin model, but it was one of those things. And I don't bake now because it involves specific amounts, and there's this. I'm more like you talked about your grandma. I just whatever I have is what I work with, and I didn't really start to fall in love with cooking until I was in the army. Had
Hmm.
a chance to move off base because the barracks hit overcrowding. Got a buddy. We put in the paperwork. We moved off. He didn't cook, so it was either starve or eat crap, or I had to start cooking. And I started cooking and got better at it. And then this is an aha for me. I asked Shelly from our company out to make her dinner. Now, Shelly was hotter than bacon grease. And back then, so far out of my league, it wasn't funny. Oh my God. And as she was getting ready to reject me, she said, "Did you say make me dinner?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Nobody's ever cooked for me before." And so she said yes. And that 40-watt light bulb turned on at that moment because I realized, oh, she only said yes because I was cooking. And I made a lemon chicken. It's the only dish I had in my repertoire that was fancy. Uh, and I made that. I think I roasted some potatoes and veggies. I don't, the other stuff doesn't matter. It was a one and done date, but again, gave me some social credibility. Also, kind of tripped the switch in me, and I had a sergeant, Earl Stoffer, who loved to cook. And I continued down that road, and it has become a love language for me, and it's not work.
Mm.
And the thing that people get wrong is they think it has to be a lot of work. I'm a big fan of crockpot cooking. Take a roast, brown it. You can even get away without browning. It's nicer if you brown it. Hey,
I
sometimes
know.
timing wise, but I got a lot of cast iron stuff, so I'm almost always going to brown it. Throw it in there, dump a couple of sliced up onions, potatoes, some baby carrots, and mushrooms, Worcestershire. And when you come back at the end of the day, you've got a delicious meal. And you could do it with chicken. You could do it with a piece of pork and go ahead and put some green verde sauce on it. Let it cook all day. You've got tacos. Oh my gosh. I also actually kind of enjoy the fancy meals, the Christmas and Thanksgiving. And except for the fact that I will burn the rolls every time because they're not on my priority list, I can get everything ready at the right time, which I don't think is really as hard as people think. It's when you don't cook that you think it's super hard. And meat's got to rest. And you've got this 10 to 20-minute window to time everything out, kind of bring it all home. So I don't think it's that hard, but
No,
I think we're seeing a lot more people enjoying and cooking. We've seen good response to the cooking thing we're going to start doing beginning this month. We're going to start with the steak because every man should know how to cook a steak, but we're going to move from there.
and I use the method that you showed us on Man of Legacy a few years ago. I'm not going to cook that cut. I'm going to cook something else. I don't have a grill. I can't have one in my apartment, and I have a kitchen that's small. Um, and I will challenge any man that if a cook can serve hundreds of people out of a galley on a submarine, then your ass can cook a meal in a small kitchen. This is about being intentional and the timing. So I'm challenging the men who see this because I call
Nice.
bullshit like you and I do when we have these kind of conversations, right? It's about prepping. It's about if I want to eat at 6, I don't start prepping at 5. I start prepping at maybe 3:30 or 4 o'clock. I pre-cut things. If I have kids, I get them to peel the potatoes. There are things that we can do to involve. It's not just us because you bring in victim energy. If it's all you have to do it all, ask for help. Cut your potatoes early. There's all sorts of stuff. Lou Morrow, who's one of the brothers in the community, is a great, great cook. Challenged me to up my game on some cooking. So this is the beautiful part of this is that you get to be creative, find a recipe, and then mess with it. Learn your
Make
flavor.
it yours.
Exactly. The one book I would recommend to any man, any person who doesn't know how to cook is Get the Joy of Cooking. It's about that thick. It's been around for 75 years. It is pretty. I don't know if you have that book, Dennis. It's pretty idiot proof. Um, I say pretty because you can still screw it up, but it will walk you through it. So if you're just learning how to cook, it's I think a good resource. And as a more seasoned cook, I still use it because sometimes I need and I'm looking for an idea of
Yeah.
what do I want to make. But I am the guy, and Dennis, I don't know if you're this way. You'll tell us. I will walk into the grocery store one evening with no idea, one afternoon with no idea what the hell I'm making. Walk back to the meat department, pick out a protein, and then the meal gets created. So there really is nothing that limits you aside from maybe your wallet, because some cuts are really expensive,
Yeah.
your time, but your creativity, this is really the chance to create something. And if you fuck it up, which you will, because I know I
occasionally.
have, that's an opportunity to learn, and you'll figure it out maybe next time.
And if you burn a little something, it's now a Cajun dish. It's blackened. That's all. Well, and I have with a buddy gone to a farmer's market, and we've taken and made did the reverse, heirloom tomatoes that were amazing. Bought a bunch of those, and we bought a watermelon, and we got some feta cheese
Mm.
to make a salad, and then we ended up getting a piece of beef and a piece of buffalo to grill. Oh my gosh, what a meal! And yeah, I'm a list guy, but I love just freestyle sometimes. But it's like, what do I have? What do I feel like cooking? When we get done recording this, I'm doing a stir fry. I'm going to make pork. I've done videos on this. Cook up the pork about 3/4 plus of the way with some garlic, take it off, throw the veggies in, saute them. I'll have from my farm share, and the farmers markets are starting depending on where you are. I've got broccolini. I have olives from my onions from my farm share. I have sugar snap peas. Um, they didn't have the baby bok choy this week. I was a little bummed about that. It's back again next week. I love bok choy. So I'll have some peppers and mushrooms I'll add into that. I'll cook that up, dump the beef back in for the final few minutes. Um, love it. And so let's talk about though what the dish we're gonna agree and disagree on today is eggplant parmesan. And I have to admit, you didn't do what I thought you were going to do. I have an issue with the old school restaurants that cake it in breadcrumbs about that thick. It, to me, it's just not, it hides the eggplant, which is the star of the show.
Yeah, eggplant is an intimidating vegetable for me because it can get mushy really quickly if you're not careful with it, which is part of the reason why, I did the egg dip with, if I remember correctly, with flour, some breadcrumbs back in the egg, and then I pan fried it and layered it up in a pan of a baking dish with my own sauce. As Dennis knows, I make my own sauce. And if you want to know what the recipe is, there's tomatoes and a bunch of stuff in there. That's about as far as I can go. But to Dennis's point, so I gave a piece to a woman I'm dating. I froze it and took it to her later. She heated it up in the oven. Turned out great. My ex-wife got a piece of it. Same thing. Heated up in the oven. The way you cook it's the way you reheat it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps it firm. And Dennis, you don't lose that flavor. I don't want to taste
Yeah.
bread. It's not bread Parmesan, it's eggplant Parmesan.
Yeah.
We have pasta on the side because Italians, even though I don't look Italian, I'm half. We have bread with our bread. So, but that's what I did. It's a little bit takes some time, but lots of cheese. When we'll see what I watched your video as well. It's okay. It looks interesting. I'm gonna have to try it.
So it's homemade sauce, but let's watch your video. Let's have everyone see your video right now. Let me share the screen, share the sound. Um, and let me know if this doesn't share on your end, okay?
We'll do.
Just because this is always a little bit of a crapshoot with me. And what I need to do is hit the play first. So let me. Let's do that again, but I'm going to hit somewhere there. I'm sure it's the way it sets it up, but let me share screen.
Break apparently. So tonight we're making eggplant. This is not emoji. We're gonna make eggplant
All right,
parmesan.
that's a little low. Hang on. Let me go back one more time because I have at least the ability to edit. I can cut a little of this out. Let me stop the share. There we go. I didn't think about the volume on the. There we go. All right. I'm doing this so I can see the cut. All right, so let's watch your eggplant parm.
Nonno took a break apparently. So tonight we're making eggplant. This is not an emoji. We're gonna make eggplant parmesan. My friend and mentor and coach Dennis Collins from Man Legacy challenged me months ago to make eggplant parm. So I'm challenging the Irishman to see if he did it the right way, which I know he didn't because Nonno knows how to make this. Although I have not made eggplant parmesan in years. So
Strike one.
First thing I want to do is peel these. Some folks don't peel their eggplant. I don't like it with the peel on there. So take the skin off. Then I'm going to slice them this way, 1/2 inch-ish. My buddy Lou will criticize my knife cuts when he sees this video later. And then I'm going to salt this, salt the slices, let them sit for about 1/2 hour, press all the water out of them, or moisture out of them, so that you get a little more crispiness. When I then will do the next step. So I'll be back. All right, we're back. So I pressed out the water, eggplant. The lovely part of a small kitchen is you got to shove all your shit into a small space. So I've really got to be prepped when I get doing this. But I'm not letting Dennis Collins prevail in this recipe. So we got eggplant sliced, salted, water pressed out. Got a plate with some flour, all-purpose flour, egg wash, and Italian breadcrumbs. On the stove, I've got my sauce I've been making all day because you know Nonno doesn't use anything but his own sauce. So the first thing we're going to do is then the oil is going. All right, put my finger in there and test it, but I'm not that crazy. So I'm going to first coat the eggplant slices with flour, do a quick egg wash, put it in, dip it in the breadcrumbs, 3 minutes each side till they get brown, and then they're going to go on, which you can't see, but it's over there, believe me, they're going to go onto this baking tray to drain, and this ladle was my grandmother's, I believe. And then we're going to throw it into a 425-degree oven for about 1/2 hour. So, because I want to be believed is what I'm doing, I'm going to very carefully move this here. So there's all my stuff I'm going to be coating with. There's the real sauce. You all have seen me made here before. So let's get this going, and I'll be back. All right. It took a bit longer than I expected. So
It always does with eggplant.
Assemble now. Never goes fast. Like chicken parm is my favorite thing to make. So, all right. So I got these the eggplant, and you want to put them on a baking sheet just from that grease off. This is the sauce I made. Now I just spray a little bit on the bottom, but I'd like to put a bit on the bottom of the pan, and then I'm just going to assemble this like a casserole. And probably should pull the bay leaf out of there. Nope, that's just a chunk of basil, so we can keep that in there. So I'm just going to stack this up, create it like a casserole, like you would lasagna. So it's going to be a little sauce, some eggplant, some cheese. Some eggplant, some sauce, some cheese. Layer it up, throw it in the oven, 425. I'll be back when we're done with, and we have the bubbly goodness. All right, in we go. There's almost a pound of cheese in there because you never have too much cheese. 425, 1/2 hour. We'll get you in after when it's done. All right, it's time. We're gonna pull this out. Always gotta have your finger in front of the lens. So it's been about 26 minutes, long enough for me. So there you go. Eggplant parm. I'm gonna pull this and let it sit on the counter while pasta's finishing off. I'll drain the broccoli and then we'll cut into this bad boy. All right, here we go. Eggplant parm, and it would be prettier if not for the fact that when I was taking this serving out of the baking pan, it slipped off and flipped over. So it doesn't matter. Still gonna taste good. So some fresh broccoli with some butter on there. Angel hair pasta. I'll throw a little sauce on top of that. But easy and delicious. Till next.
All right. Now, I will say you've, oh, we're starting again. Hang on. Hey, get you closed out there.
Love the sound of my
Yeah.
recorded voice.
Yeah.
Love it.
You're like me. You're the same way. You're like, I don't want this. So the issue, hang on, we're not ready for me yet. So yeah, you should have put the sauce over your pasta and the eggplant before you took that final picture. Presentation.
I know.
Eat with our eyes first. Now, you and I turned out to be on the same page with something. In the restaurants, they serve it almost like an eggplant steak, or one or two pieces on top of each other with a heavy coating of breadcrumbs. You were very light,
Yeah, much.
but and you did it in a pan of hot oil, where I used the no stick olive oil spray. Uh, and you did a better production job. So when I did my video, I was having a party. Eggplant and lasagna. I had a lot of crap to get done, and I was like, "Oh, that's right. I need to record this." And so I took more of the bullet points. So let's see that it's a shorter video, and then let's discuss eggplant parm, because, like a lot of things, there's multiple ways to make it. So let's do, because I'm under 2 minutes on mine. Let's share the sound. Screen one, start and go. Better way to make eggplant parmesan, okay? And make it like a lasagna. And I think you'll find it eliminates a lot of the unnecessary breadcrumbs and is a delicious dish that's easy also to prep and serve when the time comes. Take a watch. All right, for my eggplant parmesan, what I don't do is I do not bread the eggplant. I use no stick cooking spray to cook the eggplant. That is the secret. You don't get a lot of breading in the eggplant parmesan that way. Putting a layer of basil on. All right, the finished product, you can see it's a deep pan, 2 3/4 inches. If I would have had a little more eggplant, I would have put another layer. This will set up overnight in the fridge, and then we'll bake for 1 hour tomorrow, and then it'll be pulled out and let to set up for about 10 to 15 minutes before it's served. No breading whatsoever in this eggplant parm. A layer of spinach, a layer of fresh basil from my farm share from the Red Fern Farm. Now I'm hungry.
Yeah, see, one of the challenges, and I had this with lasagna, is, and I'm assuming folks saw it in my video and saw it in yours, it gets liquidy. So if you don't let
Yes.
it, at least if you don't let it set up, you're gonna have a sloppy mess. I mean, not because it's
You
served,
you
but
have to let it sit 10 or
yeah,
15 minutes,
yeah,
or it just doesn't tighten up and pull together. It's kind of like a steak. It
yeah.
needs to rest, keeps the juices, kind of gets it throughout. Um, the When you think about it, that was 3 layers of eggplant in my dish.
Mhm.
Uh, Sometimes just depending on how I've cut, because yeah, there's no uniformity. But like you, I take the skin off because it can be tough. Um, the way we difference, you do the oil, I do the no stick olive oil spray because I think you get less that way.
Mhm.
And I also then don't have to let it drain off, at all. So I don't fry much. Um, and so this is as close as I come. And and I don't cook it right then and there. I always make it the day before because I've got a spicy sauce. Typically, I have the fresh basil that was in there. I didn't have enough for 2 layers of basil, so I used spinach, give it a little bit of visual, difference. Like you, there is a pound of cheese in my, and then 4 ounces or so of parmesan on top, maybe a little bit more, depending on what's on hand. Um, and I probably could have let that toast up a bit more. So I leave the foil on for about an hour, then I take the lid off, take the foil off, and let it cook for a few more minutes to melt that cheese. And then before I put it in, I let it sit about an hour so it's not ice cold. Otherwise, it won't. It's like a lasagna. You can't put a cold lasagna in and expect it to cook.
Yeah,
Um,
but one of the things I like about, and I make egg chicken parms, my favorite thing. I mean, when I go to an Italian restaurant, people I'm with know what I'm ordering. Because, and I've had bad chicken parm, but I've had really good eggplant parm. So that's my other thing. Eggplant parm, lasagna, chicken parm, in my opinion, are better the next day after you heat it, when you heat it up, because the flavors are come together. Again,
mhm.
I don't own a microwave oven. I don't have room for it, number one. Number two, it's low on my priority list. So I have to be a
Yeah.
little more intentional. I heat it up in the oven. I have plenty, just like you, a lot of cast iron. The flavor, in my opinion, is better because I'm not like nuclear heating something that has I've taken the time to cook something like that. I'm going to attempt to take the time to reheat it that way as well. The biggest challenge in cooking, in my opinion, is the prep work. Once you have
Mhm.
everything laid out,
Comes
um,
together pretty quick.
yeah, real quick, because that was my mistake for so long, was trying to prep and cook. Want to talk about stress? Want to talk about yelling at your family? Want to talk about feeling like a victim, like nobody's helping you? Why the fuck aren't you helping me? Can't you see him out here struggling? Right. And so it's don't buy the pre-chopped green pepper. Just give yourself an extra 10 minutes to prep the pepper.
Well,
Do
it's half
those
the
things.
cost to just buy
Oh,
the peppers
yep,
and get a little decent with knife work. Sharpen your knife. Make sure you have a good knife and it's sharp.
yep.
That's half the battle of everything right there. My daughter Maddie became my sous chef. In fact, I was one time gifted a sushi class. I can make a killer sushi roll. I cannot get the rice on the seaweed square as fine as she can. It drove me nuts. I took the class and we do it, and mine always was a little thicker. I'm like, how does she? I don't know if it's smaller finger. I don't know. All I know is it drove me nuts. But it was good sushi either way. We enjoyed it. She loved to cook. We took some classes together, even. You know, I think it's something we want to encourage the kids and get
Yep.
them to participate.
Well, my 25-year-old son cooks. My daughter-in-law loves that he cooks. He learned that from me, learned it from grandma. My almost 21-year-old daughter cooks. I'd send stuff back up to school with her. So when I make that pot of sauce, I'm then freezing it in quart containers. So I have 4 or 5 quarts because I buy the big can of Nina tomatoes from Italy, get them at Costco for like $5. They're whole. Let them cook. I mean, we can talk about this on another episode, but how to make a good basic sauce, because again, the shit you buy in the store, and this is not to criticize folks who use ragu. Yeah, it may cost you a little more, but there's no sugar.
Thank you.
You can control all of your stuff. I don't put sugar in my sauce. And as Lou would tell you, if you talk to him about cooking, every vegetable has sugar in it. So if there's a way that you can cook things down to bring the natural things out. So that's the beautiful thing about what Dennis and I made. It is, it feels good to cook your own stuff. Number one. Number two, I think it's healthier.
It
Number
is
three, it's
100% healthier.
a lot less expensive. And when you share it with friends or your wife or your girlfriend or whoever it might be, they're like, "You made this?" And they are blown away by the simplicity of a dish like this.
Well, and I think you hit on something really good. So when I make my spicy sauce, I have whole tomatoes and I hand crush them,
Mm.
which is a little bit of a pain in the ass, but you know what you're getting, and then there's a lot of red pepper in my sauce, capers, and black olives because it's a
Mm.
spicy sauce. I do a regular sauce too, but you're right. You get to control the sugar and you want the natural sugar of your vegetables. You don't want added sugar that everyone puts in to make to try to match up to the palate that unfortunately the sad diet we a lot of people eat. So you hit on something else really important. So lasagna pan is, I don't know, that's a 5 pound pan when I'm done with it. Does that sound about right? Pretty close.
Two hands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I always get the disposable aluminum ones because I don't have a deep enough pan
Right.
myself. And I want that extra layer. I don't want to, if you looked at that picture, I think there was 4 layers of eggplant on mine. That fourth layer is because of the lasagna pan. But you hit on something else. I do lasagna ahead of time and let it sit. Let the flavors
Mhm.
permeate fully throughout. Then you warm them up to room temperature for about an hour or so before you put them in the oven. And what's nice is when I do the Italian feast theme, the eggplant goes in side by side with the lasagna. You let them heat up, you know. And yes, there's always leftovers. In fact,
Mhm.
the leftovers to when I made that a while ago, I had a container in the freezer about 3 weeks ago. I was like, "Is that the eggplant?" And I was at the time was giving you a hard time about you hadn't made it. And I'm like, "Ooh!" So I was all excited, and it tasted great. I got to admit, I'm a little lazier than you because I do have a microwave. Sometimes time matters, but not when I'm cooking, but sometimes when it's just to eat. Melanie and I now are doing lunch together as our main meal as opposed to dinner, trying to minimize eating late at night, a bigger meal. Um, and I always hear guys say, yeah, that's easy to talk about, but it's hard to do. Well, you know what? It isn't hard to do with planning. The key is to plan out your meals, plan out your shopping also, because if you know what you want to cook, then you know what you want to shop. And what I used to do when I had 2 kids running around the house, you're right, time matters. But I would grill a batch of chicken on Sunday for dinner. And I made enough for 3 meals because then you could have a salad with a lot of nice veggies in there besides just plain lettuce and the chicken. You could decide whatever dressing, homemade or other that you wanted to have. So now there's a second meal. You could cut up some veggies and throw that in with an omelet as well. I mean, you can do things to be very intentional about making things that you get multiple servings out of, or can repurpose, as I like to look at it. It's kind of like same thing with you pick up a roastery chicken. You're
Yep.
not going to eat the whole thing. You could have a great salad with chicken in it the next day, though.
Well, and I think you know this about me. I make my own chicken stock. I get a couple of, you know, keep a couple carcasses from the Costco chicken, and I make a stock, and then I freeze the stock, and I have that. I don't salt it. I have that. So again, sounds time consuming. If you have an instant pot, there's an amazing amount of stuff you can do with an instant pot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can take a piece of frozen meat to done in an hour, I think. So there's that. I also make my own beef stock. So yes, seems like a lot of work. It probably is a lot of work. It's cheaper to walk the half mile down to the grocery store and get a carton of Swanson beef stock or chicken stock. And I still get granted the chicken. I didn't know what went to the chicken that was being grown on the corporate farm, but I control what goes in there because it's not just chicken,
Mhm.
it's vegetables and other things. So I'm gonna, for any man who's watching this, any person who's watching this, any brother who's watching this, challenge yourself because the piece to me, I never made beef stock before. I never made my own chicken stock before. I tried it. Emeril Lagasse, Bobby Flay, Jose Andres. There are some amazing chefs out there on Instagram, on Facebook.
YouTube.
Google them, YouTube, and I'm trying to think. Her name is Nonna. My son watches her. She's got a book out now. There are people who love to cook who are doing videos like Dennis and I do, and you try it. And I think you'd be really, I think people would be really amazed at how much better you feel and what it gives me an ego boost. I hate the sound of my own voice recorded. We talked about this a little. And as Charlie would say, McKeever would say, there's this when I'm doing those videos, it's like, hey, it's Nonno. How you doing? Let's get cooking, right? I have fun with it. So just like Dennis does when he does Sexy Saturdays, we have fun with what we do.
Cooking is fun. And
It's
once
great
you
fun.
kind of feel that base competency, I would tell you whatever recipe you're looking at, and we're excluding baking stuff because you got to have everything so exact, but make it your own. My biggest regrets in cooking haven't been the things I've adjusted, it's the things I've actually followed the recipe. And while I'm doing it, because I've never made this one thing before, I'm like, I think it'd be better if I did this, or this. And if I don't do that, then I make it. I'm like, this is good, but I'm disappointed because it wasn't better. And so I've gotten to the point now, I use recipes as ideas, I use videos as ideas. Um, but I kind of do what I do.
Mhm.
And I don't give it, any thought to, everyone else, oh, this is how I mean, yes, I made a better version of eggplant because there are no breadcrumbs, but yours looked delicious and it was very lightly breadcrumbs. So I give you props, and you did it lasagna style, which is even better because you end up with a better product, in my opinion, and less breadcrumbs because, you look at the old school restaurant style that
Right.
the breadcrumbs are so heavy, it's insane.
You lose the real you lose what the protein is if you're using chicken.
Yeah.
You lose the vegetable if you're in there. Even though mine's better, you'll notice Dennis and I do this bantering. This love. This is
Yeah.
this again. We talk about brotherhood. This is brotherhood right here. This
Beaten by the
brotherhood.
Irishman, an
I'm not
Italian
beaten by the
dish.
Irishman, but
So
I
here's the
am.
funny thing: eggplant. A lot of people haven't even ever eaten.
No.
So all they know is the emoji. So I use eggplant basically three ways. I stir fry it a lot,
Okay.
and that needs to be cooked right after the pork or the protein is because it takes a while to cook down. Then the veggies in, then it goes back in, and then the protein. I also do a baba ganoush where I bake it
Mm.
and slice it 4 or 5 times down the side, cram in garlic, and just bake it and then scrape it all out. Now, the problem is that dish looks like vomit. So I always roast a couple of red peppers and dice them up really fine. And I literally only add them to it because of the appearance. That's the whole reason. And then I add a sweet chili sauce and a little bit of a sriracha style sauce. And first time I brought it, somebody was like, "What is that?" And then they tried it. That dish was emptied out so fast, and it became requested every year at this party because they were like, "Oh yeah, we want you to bring that eggplant stuff." And you put a sheet of foil down, you put 4 eggplant on a pan. The prep was 5 minutes total.
And you peel
You
them or
know,
you don't peel them.
no, I don't peel them.
Okay.
So I have a glove that is rubber that is also insulated. So when it's done, you let it cool
Mm.
some, but hold the eggplant. I just take a tablespoon and scrape
Gotcha.
everything out, and it just kind of falls like leather strips because of the slits. It bakes down to this crumpled mess, but it's delicious. It's a great little appetizer. I've used regular eggplant, the Japanese or Chinese eggplant, um, and I figured out with the farmers market, I started going, they started having a Wednesday farmers market. And one time I was like there, and eggplant looked great. I thought it was premium pricing, and I was like, you know. And as I'm walking away, the guy's like, he cut the price, and I'm like, hmm. He gave me a great deal because if the vegetables don't sell on Wednesday, they don't always make it to Saturday to be
Right.
looking fresh and sparkling. So I think the Wednesday ones might be from the previous Saturday, depending on the farm. But so I've learned that the power of walking away on a Wednesday from the farmer's market is quite beneficial. An eggplant will get in season. I'm going to see if I can find some eggplant plants. I used to grow eggplant in my garden. Right now, I've just got tomatoes and peppers, a crazy variety of each. I had something kind of taken up a lot of my time last month.
I-
Uh,
Um,
the West Virginia meetup
yeah,
thing.
that's what it was. Yeah, that whole wedding thing.
That whole wedding thing didn't
That was
take
just a blip
anything.
on the radar screen. Make sure Melanie knows that was just a blip.
Yeah. And what I do too in and I'm getting ready to do my flower garden, which I'm behind in, got into a rain pattern that wasn't beneficial, didn't have the time, but I'll plant two basil plants in my flower
Yep.
garden, and they will grow like weeds because they're unencumbered. They've got their root system can get big. And it's great to have the fresh basil that way.
Do you
Uh,
freeze your basil?
I haven't.
So here's what you do. Don't wash it because obviously
Yeah.
take a baking sheet. You have a deep freezer. I know you have like
Mhm.
2.5 cows in there. Take a
Just
baking
one, just
sheet.
one,
Right.
and a
Don't
hog.
wash your basil because you can always wash it later. Set it in the um, set the sheet in the deep freezer. Let it freeze on the tray. Put it into a Ziploc bag. Now it will not be beautiful when you thought, but in the wintertime, when you don't have access to that fresh basil, now you can take that and put it into your sauces and other stuff. You can chop it up, you can puree it however you want, but then you have your fresh basil because you're right. Basil plants will, if they're indeterminate, you'll have basically a tree size of them.
Yeah.
But again, it's the way. Just an idea. I've done that. I don't have a deep freezer at this point in time, and I found that the other thing is when you go take a handful out, don't forget to put the bag back in the deep freezer. Otherwise, you lose everything you.
I could see that whoops happening because I sometimes have to make sure everything goes back into the freezer. Yeah, the deep freeze with your living arrangements, you don't have a deep freeze. You can't do the half a cow,
Nope.
or half a hog, which is a shame because there's uh, there's some benefits there. There's a new world marketplace that just opened up, and they have regular and halal meat, and their prices, I think they beat Costco on some of their prices, meat wise. I like buying the hog from my Mennonite folks because they grow their own feed for it. There's no antibiotics. Same thing. My cow is grass fed, grass finished. The only thing I haven't sourced quite right is chicken. Um, but that's usually only in the rotation once a week. So
You're
I try to do
carnivore
fish
guy.
one day a week.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
carnivore. Dennis is the carnivore. I'm the carbohydrates. Being a cyclist, I eat more carbs and protein. Dennis eats more protein and protein and some fats, right? And your
Well,
veggies, but
but veggies, like I was all excited when my farm share started out, but I watch and minimize the potatoes and the rice. And quite honestly, I got a little relaxed on some processed carbs, and I noticed I was what I would describe creaky last week or so, and I'm like, it's the processed crap, and so I just try to avoid that as a general rule. So we have poker tomorrow night, and we're doing Mexican, so there'll be ground beef. I'm also going to cook up some chicken thighs and slice them up and saute up some peppers and onions. So you have kind of a regular taco or fajita type thing. But I'm probably going to do a bowl as opposed to the extra 100 calories for three different tacos, soft tacos. Uh, but yeah, knowing where your food comes from is a nice plus.
Yep.
Uh, and taking the time to do a little cooking saves you time the rest of the week.
Yep. Even if it's
Yeah.
one time a week, it saves a significant amount of time. Sundays were always the day when I was growing up. I'm going to assume, Dennis, it was similar for you. Sunday was the big meal. There were other meals in the
Mm-hmm.
week, but Sunday was the big meal. And then maybe Thursday or Friday, it was leftover night, and that was cool. Kind of, it felt like a smorgasbord some days. You got some of this or some of that, and
Yep.
so you got to choose what you wanted to eat. But that's what you had. There was no dinner being cooked that night. It was leftover night.
Well,
Great.
it's interesting. You know, sometimes I'll do my fridge will get like that because of the different things I've cooked, and there's a serving here of this, two servings of that, and it's kind of nice to have a little bit of everything. You don't want to eat the same thing constantly. And that's I literally have the first 6 to 8 months of the cooking thing we're doing in mentoring men laid out. We're going to do steak. We're going to do hamburgers.
Mm.
Then we're going to do guacamole. I forget. I think there's something else, and then pizza.
Yeah, we're all going to get schooled on that by Schwantz.
I know though, but how cool is that?
It's going to
So
be
here's
great.
the thing: his pizzas are round. Mine look like a body chalk outline of a murder. I can never get them round,
Mine
and
are
I've
round too.
stopped trying.
I just go to the grocery store. I just go to the grocery store and buy the pre-made crust and put my stuff on top. They're round. Uh,
Yeah.
Again, I think the key to this whole discussion we're going to be having over the next 6 to 8 months and beyond is don't compare. I'm not going to compare myself to Matt Schwant's ability to his 48-hour cold fermented. That's great, right? That's his thing. He loves to do that. He likes to cook
Mm-hmm.
Mexican food. I like to cook Italian. I like to cook comfort food. That's great. But this is not about comparing it. We learn and grow together. Like, I never thought about doing it that way. This is about expanding our skill set and pushing our edges sometimes to go, I would never make X and then going to make X, whatever that my dish
Have you
is.
ever cooked octopus?
I have not cooked octopus, but it's
So
delicious.
I used to watch Iron Chef all the time, and we had this amazing Asian market. They had octopus, and I was like, I'm gonna cook up some octopus. It cooks down, not worth the effort. Did it? Check that box, and I was like, juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yep.
And it's kind of like um, Bobby Flay, not Bobby Flay, Alton Brown's greatest green bean casserole. He
Yes.
does his own French fried onion rings. Way too much work for what you
No.
get. Um, and so I had a friend, he tried it once. He's like, no, not worth the effort. He brined his own ham too. Same thing. He's like, it was good, not worth the work involved for 3 weeks to brine it leading up to when he cooked it. And so that's the thing, guys. We want men to cook for themselves, cook for their families. This is something we see a lot more people cooking inside the community. We want to encourage growth. In mentoring men, we are all about the growth journey, both personal, professional,
Yep.
but and relationally. And I think cooking has a lot of correspondence to, we don't know what we're doing at first, and we get good, and then we start getting a little adventurous, and it's just something I think, the brotherhood, and we've got like a dozen guys interested in the cooking stuff, and not everyone might have seen it, and there's some who probably haven't said anything uh, yet, but they'll do it too, and somebody will learn from it.
Yep.
And so challenge yourself, brothers. And if you're looking for community, especially if you're looking for community that talks about more than sports and weather, there'll be a link down below to come check us out at Mentoring Men. Um, what we find is we are often the community for that more evolved guy who's looking for other high value men. it's a phrase gets thrown around, but again, I think self-sufficiency, you got to be able, as self-reliance, you got to be able to cook. And these are the types of these little things go a long way. And as you confirmed and what I learned, it makes a huge difference if you're in the dating world
Oh my God.
because you are in the top tier at that point, and it's a
I
lot of
will
fun.
I will say this as we get close to the end of this, that dining out is it's I like going out and have I'm a burger guy. I love a good burger. It gets boring going out all the time. I go out quite a bit for work. I've lost my palate for wanting to dine out in some respects. So cooking is a way um, to kind of change that palate you're experiencing because you're tasting your own cooking. It's also a way to build that relationship. As I said, as the woman, whether it's your wife, girlfriend, or even just friends, are having a beer, a glass of wine, or something non-alcoholic. And Dennis, you and I have talked about this. We should talk about that another time as well about reducing alcohol in our bodies. But it's a way to be social. It's a
Mm-hmm.
way for us to connect. And we had a trip, not mentoring men retreat about a month ago in Idaho. And one of the brothers from the community here and I took some time to teach one of the other brothers some things about cooking so he could take that back and cook some at home. So it's all about us trying to help each other be a more fully and well-rounded man.
And quite honestly, with so when I used to teach financial peace, we're talking a long time ago. This is post first divorce because I found financial peace after I figured out I was spending more than I made after child support. But the cost of eating out, and I used to use the example in the class. If you go to Olive Garden, we won't even get into. I know, but it was the example people could relate to. Family of four, they get iced teas or cokes. They get, oh, we get unlimited salad and breadsticks. Yes, you do. And you get four dishes. Well, by the time you were out the door with a decent tip, it was $80 back then. I can tell you right now, they're charging 15 plus dollars for a burger. So if two of you go out, if you get any even non-alcoholic drinks, you are looking at $50 or more with tip out the door. Now think about how far $50 can go when you're um, buying some ground beef. My secret ingredient is chorizo into my hamburgers, 4 ounces to every pound, a little bit of Worcestershire, a little bit of pepper. That's it. And well, now you've got that. Buns are cheap. Okay. But then what do you want to do as a side? You could you could do veggies, you could do a salad, you can do all sorts of things, but you're out the door $20 or less. And that's what I used to show. I literally went shopping for a meal of meatballs, pasta when I was doing the Olive Garden example. You got the $80. And so it was jarred sauce, but I was just doing the look. If you
Yep.
cooked at home, nobody's serving you and you got to clean up. But the difference to buy a pound of pasta, a bag of salad, you know, a bag of meatballs, and when you did it, it's like, okay, you're $20 or less with leftovers, or you're $80 for what we'll just call as bad Italian or imitation Italian. I like the old school individually owned Italian
Yep.
restaurants,
Yep. Absolutely.
you know.
And
So
where I live, we have them, so I get to frequent them if I want to.
yeah. All right. Hey, Matt, thank you very much for joining me today.
You bet, brother.
I'm going to declare it a tie.
You know,
I'm
you're
being
so
kind here, so
humble.
don't.
You're humble. I should be careful here, right? So I'm gonna get killed on the stake. It was wonderful. It's an honor. I appreciate you kicking my ass a little bit to remind me to get in the kitchen and make this dish because I was dragging my feet.
And I got one other challenge for you.
Yes, sir.
Get a video out a month of something you're making because it'll help. If it helps one guy go, ooh, I never thought about that. I could do that.
I can work on that. That's not a problem.
All right. All right, guys. Thanks again. Link below for mentoring men. And put, I'll, I'll see if I can't put a link to my steak video on here too. All
Awesome.
right. Catch you later, guys.
Take
Thanks
care.
again.